Episode 1, the Big Bar Brawl, brought to you from the Golden Key Inn in Cinderac City. After his trip to the Ash Storm Observatory, Rufie, after losing most of its cargo and discovering Whiteton Falls, decides to drown his sorrows with a bottle of wild snake. Overhearing him, the fighters of our noble houses decide the plunder is theirs for the picking. However, trying to get hold of Rufie and get the information, a bar brawl starts and all the houses are embroiled in a huge battle, the winner of which gets the jump start on the campaign. Today's battles was played in our local friendly gaming store, which is Akron Books and Games, found in Hull. They do have a website, and again I will tag this in our video comments. After a night of heavy drinking, the highly intoxicated fighters of the houses are in the bar, the Golden Key. Overhearing Rufie's story, they all decide they want a piece of the action and try and take control. At the time this is happening, two enforcers of the Department of Iron Fists, recently off duty, however been partaking in the Wild Snake, turn up and try to break the fight up. This is going to be one battle to remember. So present in the Golden Key for the Emperor's Furies, we have the Deacon Homer and the Brethren Obi. Up next, representing the Crimson Blades, we have the Death Maiden Raven and the Little Sister Scarlet. Moving on to the Great House Orlok, we have the Arms Master Barrett, you may have seen him before, and also Mad Dog Morgan the Gunner, again you may have seen him before. For the Enforcers, we have Sergeant Marcus Black, and with him today we have Officer Nathan Lee, a Subjugator Patrolman. Representing House Goliath, we have Drax the Red Bull Dorgan the Stimmer, and we have Tracer Bolt Action the Bruiser. For the sake of this battle, despite what you see on the models, all fighters are treated as unarmed. The door staff of the Golden Key aren't allowing anybody in armed up to the teeth, as the last thing they want is the regular bar fight turning into a bloodbath. All injuries will be rolled for the campaign, however, only a double 1 and a double 6 will award experience. Other than this, all results will be treated as out cold, as we want everyone fully fit for when the teams arrive at Whiteton Falls to try and take it over. So the scenario being played will be Bar Brawl. There will be a few exceptions to the standard rules, which you can see in front of you now. Instead of 1 to 2 tiles, there will be 4, which have been custom made by myself. The bar and the revelers and the tables and chairs, etc. are all from Print Minis, as I'm one of their patrons. The crews for each gang, instead of being custom 4, will be custom 2, where each gang brings a champion of their choice and a ganger. There'll be no tactics cards as per the scenario, and deployment will be taking it in turns based on priority, deploying 3 inches away from another fighter. There'll be D3 plus 3 Hive Dwellers, which have already been set up as per the earlier video you've seen, and we did get 6. And then the Night of Revelry rules will be in effect. All fighters have consumed several rounds of drinks before trouble started, making them mean drunks indeed. Both sides are attempting to be the last standing, so no group activations. All fighters suffer from the intoxicated condition with -1 movement, -1 weapon skill, -1 ballistic skill, and they'll automatically pass all cool tests. The first time a fighter is activated each round, we roll the D6 to see if they can shake off intoxication. In round 1 it's going to require a 6+, and from 2 onwards it's a 4+. Finally, check your guns at the door. As already mentioned, there'll be no weapons whatsoever in this battle report, as we want it to be fun and representing a bar which allows no weapons in. Finally, the Hive Dwellers, the patrons themselves. Any actions within 3 inches of them if it's a fight action, or if anyone ends a move within 2 inches of them, we roll a D6 to see what happens. On a 1 or a 2, it's oh yeah, they pick up a piece of furniture and take a single shoot action to the nearest fighter, even if that fighter didn't trigger the event. 3 to 4, okay, take it easy fella, and a 5 to 6, I'm getting out of here, they run away. Rolling for priority, we have the Goliaths first, followed by the Enforcers using the yellow dice, and then it's a roll-off between the Orloks and the Escher for 3rd and 4th, with a Cawdor last. And after the roll-off for the tie, it's the Orloks 3rd, Escher 4th, and Cawdor to go 5th. So, set up as follows. Orloks to the left, Cawdors to the bottom of the bar, Goliath right in the centre, feeling brave, ready to take on anyone. The Enforcers at the bar, trying to get that last shot of Wild Snake before the fighting starts, and the Escher hide in the left corner. Bolt up first for the Goliaths, feeling brave, decides to charge an Enforcer. Testing first to see if he can shake his drunken revelry. With a 3 he can't. Rolling to see his charge distance, he gets a 1, which gives him more than enough movement to make the charge.
Charge!
With Bolt still being intoxicated, he requires a further -1 to hit when he charges. He has 1 attack on his profile, he gets another 1 for charging, giving him 2 attacks, needing a 4, which now goes to 5 due to being intoxicated. Rolling, he gets a 4 and a 3 with no hits. Marcus now has a chance to retaliate against Bolt. 10 into face gives him -1 to hit. Normally he would hit on a 4+, this would now go to a 5, however he's still intoxicated, meaning he needs 6s to hit. On his profile he only has 1 attack, and again there are no weapons, so with his 1 dice he rolls, requiring a 6 to hit, and he scores a 4, no hit. Up for the Enforcers, the Subjugator Patrolman, Officer Nathan Lee. Seeing Marcus Black getting charged, he decides to get involved in the fight. First thing he does is test to see if he is still intoxicated, needing a 6 with it still being round 1. Rolling, he scores a 2, and then next he rolls to see how far he can charge, scoring a 3. More than enough movement to move him straight into contact with Bolt and assist Sergeant Marcus Black. Just like Bolt, Officer Nathan Lee is still intoxicated, meaning his weapon skill of 4+ is now reduced by -1 to 5+. He has 1 attack on his profile, however he gets an additional attack for charging, so with his 2 attacks he needs to score 5s or more in order to hit Bolt. Rolling, he scores a 6 and a 2, meaning 1 attack gets through, and with a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 4, a 5+ is required to wound, and he rolled a 3, no wound. As Officer Nathan Lee is still in Bolt's front arc, he doesn't need to turn to face him to strike. However, he would normally need a 4+. This changes to a 6 due to the fact that he's intoxicated and Sergeant Marcus Black is also interfering, giving him a further -1. Rolling the dice, and it's a 3, no hit. The first activation for House Orlok, Barrett the Arms Master. First needs to test if he's no longer intoxicated, needing a 6. And he gets it, meaning he no longer has those negative modifiers. Rolling to charge to see how far he can move additionally, and he gets a 3, which gives him 2 extra inches of movement, and he decides to charge into Drax, the Stimmer.
Charge!
Barrett has 2 attacks on his profile and an additional 1 for charging. No longer intoxicated, means he just needs a 3+ to hit. He has 3 dice, rolling them up, and he scores 2 hits. With a strength of 3 versus an impressive toughness of 5, although it's not quite double, he still needs 5s to wound, and he does score 1 wound, and with a Fairness Plate armour, it's a 5+ to save, which he fails. As he's not out of the fight with a wound remaining, he gets to retaliate. With 3 attacks on his profile, he normally requires a 2+ to hit, however with intoxication this is -1, so he needs 3s. Scoring 2 hits, with a strength of 4 versus a toughness of 3, it is only a 3+ to wound. He scores 2 wounds. However, Barrett, wearing mesh armour, has a 5+ armour save. With a 6 in there, he's managed to save 1 wound and keep himself in the fight that little bit longer. With such a brutal melee in the middle of the bar, I would have expected one of the fighters to go out of action. However, both the Arms Master of the Orloks and the Stimmer from the Goliaths are both left on 1 wound remaining. The next fight between these two is going to be massive. First up for the Escher, Raven the Death Maiden. First testing to see if she's no longer intoxicated. She gets a 4, meaning she's still quite drunk. And then with this, she then tests to see how far she can charge. Rolling a 2, she gets an additional inch. However, with a movement characteristic of 7, this is more than enough to get her into Bolt from House Goliath.
Yeah!
With no weapons involved, Raven's going to have to rely on brute strength to win this combat. With 3 attacks on her profile, plus 1 for charging, she should be rolling 4 attacks, requiring a 3+ due to intoxication. However, my friend playing as the Escher forgot completely about the extra attack for charging, meaning he rolled 3 dice, requiring 3s to hit. With 2 6s and a 2, that's 2 hits, and with a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 4, it's going to be 5s to wound the Goliath. With 1 wound scored, it's going to be a 6+ armour save to prevent it going through, and with a 2, this fails. Rolling an injury dice to see what happens to him. It's a serious injury, meaning that the Goliath is going to go down. With no objections from Sergeant Marcus Black, Raven is allowed to do the coup de grace, taking Bolt out of action, and it's first blood to the Escher. First up for House Cawdor, Homer the Deacon. First thing he's going to need to do is test to see if he's intoxicated. However, thou shalt not drink in the name of the Emperor. Requiring a 6. A 6 is rolled. He was never drunk all along. Rolling to see how far he can charge, he gets an additional 2, which is a 1 inch to his movement. However, this is more than enough to take him into contact with Mad Dog Morgan.
Charge!
Charging in, he has 2 attacks on his profile, plus an additional 1 for charging, requiring a 4 plus to hit, no longer intoxicated, so there are no penalties. Rolling the 3 dice, and he gets 2 4s, which is 2 hits. With a strength 3 versus a toughness of 3, it's going to be 4s to wound. With a 5, that's 1 straight wound. Mad Dog Morgan has no armour, so the injury dice to see what happens, and it's a flesh wound. This means Mad Dog Morgan's not out of the fight and gets a chance to retaliate. With 1 attack on his profile, Mad Dog Morgan would normally require a 4 plus to hit. However, turning to face and the fact he's still intoxicated means with -2 he's going to need a 6. Rolling a 2, and he misses. Now, as the fight action has happened within 2 inches of a bar patron, on this particular occasion we've remembered to roll. We had forgotten every point up until now. Rolling the dice to see what happens, and we get a 6. That's a I'm getting out of here. The model that was there to represent a door staff member of the Golden Key Inn has decided, not for me, not tonight, and I'm out of here. Up next, Drax, and with him still being locked in with Barrett, it is first test to see if he's intoxicated, requiring a 6, and with a 4 he still is, so as his first action decides to throw a fight into Barrett. With 3 attacks on his profile, normally hitting on 2s, this is changed to 3s due to the intoxication rule. Rolling the 3 dice, and he scores a 6 and a 3 and a 1, meaning 2 hits are in there. With a strength of 4 versus a toughness of 3, it's 3s to wound, and he scores a wound. This could be fatal for Barrett. Needing a 5 plus on his mesh armour, he gets it, so no injuries scored. As Barrett's still on his feet, he has a chance to retaliate. With 2 attacks on his profile, requiring 3s to hit as he is not intoxicated, he rolls the dice, scores 2 hits, and with a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 5, it's going to be 5s to wound. Scoring 2 6s, this could be massive. This could be the end of the stimmer and the biggest threat in the bar. You won't believe the tenseness as the fairness plates are rolled to see if they save. And it's a double 5. He saved it. I can't believe he saved it. Up next, rolling for the patrons, old Rufie right next to the fight, requiring a 4 plus not to run away. And he gets the 4. And then next, we've got the Chem Synth next to them. And again, we roll to see what happens. And as we score a 5, this is a I'm getting the hell out of here. And they decide to flee the bar. Next up, Sergeant Marcus Black. First thing he needs to do is see if he can shake the intoxication, requiring a 6. And he gets it. No longer drunk, he declares a charge, rolling a D3. He scores a 2, giving him an extra inch of movement. Irrelevant really, he's only going straight into Raven right in front of him.
Charge!
With 1 attack on his profile, plus an additional 1 for charging, he needs 4s to hit in combat. Rolling both dice, and he gets a 6 and a 5, both hit. With a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 4, it's going to be 5s to wound. Rolling the dice, he scores 1 wound. With Raven wearing an armoured undersuit and mesh armour, she requires a 4 plus to save. And with a 3 being scored, that's 1 wound taken. As she didn't go out of the fight, she gets a chance to retaliate. She doesn't need to turn to hit. She has 3 attacks on her profile, normally requiring a 2 plus. She rolls the dice, needing 3s. And with 2 2s and a 5, she only scores 1 hit. With a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 3, it's a 4 plus to wound, which she gets. And Marcus Black is going to need a 5 plus to save, with his flak armour and undersuit, which he gets. And at the end of the activation, we need to test to see what happens to the patrons. The barman gets a 3. Okay, take it easy, fella, with nothing happening. And then lastly, we need to test for the bouncer still in the middle of the fight. Rolling the dice, and it's a 5. Another cowardly door staff. Away he goes and off he runs. For the Orlocks, we have Mad Dog Morgan, first testing to see if he can shake the intoxication. Needing a 6, he scores a 4. So 1 attack on his profile, he does a fight action. Needing a 5 plus to hit with that -1, and he gets it. With a strength of 3 versus Homer's toughness of 3, it's a 4 plus to wound. Scoring a 1, there's no wound. Homer has a chance to retaliate with 2 attacks on his profile, needing 4s to hit. With a 6 and a 3, he scores 1 hit. And with a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 3, it's a 4 plus to wound. Rolling, and he gets a 2. Bit of a stalemate, bit of a dud, and in this occasion, nothing else happens. Drunk and leaning up against the wall, Scarlet, the little sister, decides to try and get involved in the fight. First trying to shake the intoxication, rolling a 1. She's going nowhere in terms of getting rid of that drunkenness. Instead of charging into the fight, she decides to stumble up towards the Deaf Maiden to try and give her some support, ready for the next round. Lastly, to finish up the round, Obi the Cawdor Brethren tries to shake his intoxication, getting a 5, and fails to do so. As such, he stumbles towards the back of the stimmer, ready for the next round. His move activation, however, does trigger the nearby Dweller of Rufie, rolling a dice to see what happens, and it's a 1, which is oh yeah. He picks up a piece of furniture and takes a single shoot action at the nearest fighter, which in this instance is the stimmer. Did a 5 plus to hit, he scores a 6, and with a strength of 2 against a toughness of 5, it's going to be a 6 to wound, and he rolls a 4. No wound on this occasion, however, Rufie's showing he's still got some fight in him. That's the end of the round. And for the start of round 2, priority goes as follows. First will be Orlocks, second Escher, third will be the Enforcers, fourth will be Goliath, and last again, Cawdor. From this round onwards, to reshake the intoxicated condition, you only need a 4 plus. With a priority, Barrett decides to try and take advantage of the drunken Drax. With 2 attacks on his profile, hitting on 3s, he rolls to try and score 2 hits. And with a 4 and a 3, he does that. With a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 5, it's going to be 5s to wound. With a 3 and a 4, that's 2 misses. Drax has a chance to retaliate, normally hitting on 2 plus with his 3 attacks on his profile. However, due to intoxication, he's going to hit on 3s instead. Rolling the dice, and he scores 2 hits. With a strength of 4 versus a toughness of 3, it's going to be 3s to wound. With 1 wound scored, now Barrett needs to make a save of a 5 plus on his mesh armour to stay in the fight, and he rolls a 2. This takes him down to 0 wounds, and Drax gets a chance to see what happens to him in combat. And with a serious injury rolled, it's going to be a coup de grace, and that's the end of Barrett and the end of the big fight in the middle. Because of the fight action within 2 inches of Rufie, a die is rolled to see what happens with him, and rolling up, it's a 3. Okay, take it easy fella. Raven next, wanting to take out the Palanite Sergeant, first tries to shake the intoxicated condition, rolling a 1 and fails to do so. With 3 attacks on her profile, normally requiring 2s, it's now 3s because she's drunk. Rolling the dice, and it's a 2 and 2 1s. Complete miss. The Sergeant, having a chance to strike back, has 1 attack on his profile. He is not intoxicated, which means he needs a 4 plus to hit. Rolling the dice, and he gets a 2. This combat's been a complete dud. Officer Nathan Lee, looking to defend his sergeant, first tries to shake the drunken condition, and with a 4, he's no longer intoxicated. Next, he declares a charge, rolling to see how much extra movement he can get. He scores a 5, giving him 3 additional inches, which is more than enough for what he needs. Charging into Raven, he normally has 1 attack on his profile, gets an additional attack for charging, and would normally hit with a weapon skill of 4. However, due to the crowding out, he gets an extra +1, meaning he's hitting on 3s. Rolling the dice, and he gets 2 6s. With a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 4, he's looking for 5s to wound, and with a 4 and a 3, there's no wounds. Raven, with a chance to retaliate, would normally hit on a 2 plus with her 3 attacks. However, this is -1, and then another -1 for intoxicated and crowded out, meaning she's hitting on 4s. Rolling the 3 dice, She gets a 6, a 5 and a 2 with 2 hits. Strength of 3 versus a toughness of 3, meaning she needs 4s to wound. And scoring a wound in there, we're now looking to see an armour save of a 5+ to stop that injury getting through. And with a 1, Nathan Lee's in trouble. Rolling the injury dice, and we get a serious injury, meaning he's down and out for the moment. However, due to the sergeant, he cannot be coup de grace. Lastly, rolling for the barman to see what happens, and it's a 3. Hang on there, fella. Next up, Drax. First trying to shake the intoxicated condition, needing a 4+, and scoring a 3, he's still drunk. With 3 attacks on his profile, normally hitting on 2s, this is now a 4. Rolling the dice, and we get 2 hits. With a strength of 4 versus a toughness of 3, we're looking for 3s to wound. And with a 4 and a 3, that's 2 wounds onto Barrett. Looking for 5s on his mesh armour. And it's a 2 and a 4. We finally get through. Rolling to see what happens, and we have a serious injury and a flesh wound. Barrett put up a good fight, but eventually Drax has won the day, and that's the end of the Arms Master.
Ah!
And lastly, rolling for old Rufie, it's a 4. Okay, take it easy, fella. He decides to stick around. Up next for Cawdor, Homer the Deacon. First thing he does is a fight action into Mad Dog Morgan. With 2 attacks, needing 4s to hit, he rolls the dice, and it's a 3 and a 1, a swing and a miss. As Mad Dog Morgan gets the opportunity to retaliate, he is intoxicated, however, with a -1 to hit. That means the 1 die he's rolling with his attack would normally hit on a 4, he's looking for a 5, and with a 1, it's a complete miss. Now over to the Orlok 10, Mad Dog Morgan's go, trying to shake the intoxication. Rolling a 5, he's no longer drunk. This means this time, the 1 attack on his profile is going to go back to hitting on a 4. Rolling to hit, and it's a 2, another swing and a miss. Because Homer gets a chance to retaliate with the 2 attacks on his profile looking for 4s, he rolls them up, and this time with a 6 in there he does hit. With a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 3, we're looking for a 4+ to wound. And with a 2, that's double combat, double whiff. Next up for the Crimson Blades, the little sister Scarlet. First trying to shake the intoxicated condition, rolling a 6, she's no longer drunk. Surveying the battlefield after shaking her head, she decides to step towards Raven, the Death Maiden, and spotting Officer Nathan Lee on the floor, decides to move in and coup de grace him. This is the first injury I'm showing you on stream, as we got a double 1, which meant out cold, lesson learned, and the Enforcer managed to gain an extra 2 experience. Enraged at seeing Officer Lee get badly beaten, Sergeant Marcus Black decides to swing to Raven. With his 1 attack and a weapon skill of 4, he rolls to see if he can hit, and scoring a 6 with a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 4, it's going to be a 5+ to wound. Scoring a 1, there's no wound, and Raven the Death Maiden gets a chance to retaliate. She's got 3 attacks on her profile, however she's still intoxicated, meaning she's -1 to hit, so instead of a 2, she's hitting on a 3. Rolling the dice, and she scores 2 hits with a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 3, we're looking for 4s to wound, and 1 wound is scored with that 6. Sergeant Black has flak armour and an armoured undersuit, meaning he needs a 5+ to stop the wound going through, and rolling a 3, he takes a wound. Having 2 on his profile, he's not out just yet.
Going to take the worst kind of pain.
After the fight action is done, there's a test for the patron behind the bar. Rolling a die and it's a 2. Oh yeah? Stop messing up my bar! A bottle is thrown towards the good sergeant. Needing a 5+ to hit, the die is rolled, and it's a 5. With a strength of 2 versus a toughness of 3, it's going to be a 5+ to wound, and thankfully for the sergeant, it's just a 1. Last to activate in turn 2, the Cawdor Brethren Obi. Trying to shake the intoxicated condition, he rolls a 3, failing, and proving that drunkenness equals stupidness, he rolls a 5 whilst declaring a charge to go into the Goliath Stimmer. The movement was more than enough. With 1 attack on his profile, +1 for charging, with -1 to hit due to the intoxication, he's looking at 5s to hit. Rolling both dice, and it's a 4 and a 2 with no hit scored. The Goliath Stimmer now turns to face. With -1 for turning, -1 for intoxication, he's looking for 4s to hit. And rolling the dice, he scores 1 hit. With a strength of 4 versus a toughness of 3, we're looking at 3s to wound. And a 4 is rolled. An injury die gets to be rolled as there's no armour on the corridor, and that brings up a serious injury, proving that charging when you're drunk is pretty stupid. As it's the corridor player's turn, he cannot be coup de grace. So into the end phase, this is our first time we've had a recovery roll to make. So rolling for the corridor player, that is a flesh wound, meaning he now returns to his feet and he is still in combat with the Goliath Stimmer. Something we've forgot to do every round so far, or the one previous round should I say, is test to see what happens with the patrons in the bar. So testing for old Rufie first. A hit is rolled, meaning he can be run in any direction. The player that rolled decided to make him run towards the Escher and Enforcer combat. Next up, we tested for the chef near to the bar, and very valiantly she ran towards the bar, possibly hoping to duck into cover, ready for the next round, avoid all the fighting. Then next up, we rolled for the barkeep himself. After throwing a chair at old Marcus Black, he's probably sensibly deciding to run away, so decides to hop the bar and run past the combat, ready to get away. So turn 3 priority, first is the Orlocks, second the Enforcers, third Corridor, fourth Goliath, and last for this round it'll be the Escher. So Mad Dog Morgan for House Orlock does a fight action into Home of the Deacon. With 1 attack on his profile, needing a 4 to hit, he scores a hit, and with a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 3, it's going to be a 4+ to wound. And with a 5 being rolled and no armour on the Deacon, that's going to be 1 wound making it through. As the Deacon has 2 wounds on his profile, he does get a chance to retaliate. He has 2 attacks on his profile, hitting on 4s. However, only 1 die was rolled stupidly, and that was a 2, so there is no retaliation, and that's the end of the combat. Sergeant Marcus Black next, trying to take down the drunken, wounded Death Maiden before she becomes too much to handle. And with 1 attack, needing a 4 to hit, he rolls and scores a 1. With a retaliation attack from the Death Maiden incoming, she has 3 attacks on her profile, normally hitting on 2s, however still intoxicated, meaning she needs 3s. With 2 2s in there, she's only hitting once. With a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 3, she's looking for a 4 to wound, and with a wound getting through, Marcus is now relying on his 5+ armour save to not be taken out of action. And with a 3 being rolled, it's now time for an injury to see what happens. And with a serious injury, he goes down. However, as it's his activation, he cannot be coup de grace, but he's now vulnerable and in a very dangerous position with a little sister nearby ready to take him out when it's her turn to activate. With 2 patrons nearby next to the fight, testing to see what happens to them. And with a barkeep, it's a 5. So with that, he's getting the hell out of there. Next, testing for old Rufie. And again, another 5 is rolled. So again, another one of those patrons is getting the hell out of there. Up for Corridor, Home of the Deacon, looking for some revenge against Mad Dog Morgan. With 2 attacks on his profile, hitting on 4s, he rolls and scores 1 hit. With a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 3, he's looking for a 4 to wound. And with him getting a 4, Mad Dog Morgan has no armour, so it's a straight injury roll. And with a serious injury rolled, that takes Morgan down to the ground, where he is then coup de grace. For the Goliaths, Drax the Stimmer first tries to shake his intoxicated condition, needing a 4+, but scoring a 1, meaning he's still -1 to hit in close combat. With 3 attacks on his profile, normally hitting on 2s, he's now going to need 3s, hitting Obi, and he scores 3 hits. And with a strength of 4 versus a toughness of 3, now down to 2 with a flesh wound, it's only going to be 2s to wound. And with 3 wounds scored, he now gets to test to see what happens. With a skull in there, that is Obi out of action. Because Obi was taken straight out of action, this means that Drax is now able to consolidate, moving his back towards the wall and facing the oncoming Escher. With only the Escher left to activate, first the little sister walks towards Sergeant Marcus Black on the floor and coup de grace him.
Ah!
The last model to activate in the round, Raven the Death Maiden, first testing to shake that intoxication, and as she manages to do so, she then takes advantage of the sprint skill and decides to get herself right in the back corner of the bar, overlooking the Stimmer, ready to attack from behind in the next round. At the start of turn 4, rolling for priority, first up will be Goliath rolling a 6, second Escher rolling a 5, and last for the third time, Cawdor rolling a 1. First to activate in the round, Drax, trying to shake that intoxication finally, and he gets a 3. I don't know how much this guy drunk, but I cannot believe he's still there. With -1 to his movement, there's not a lot he can do other than move into the middle of the board and challenge anybody to come and take him on. Come get some! Next for Escher, Scarlet the little sister, knowing she's no match for Drax, just jostles into position, waiting to flank. Not wanting to be as cowardly as the Escher, Homer the Deacon decides to double move towards the Stimmer, ready to get into charge range. Either through fear or respect, Raven the Death Maiden decides to circle around the back of Drax, afraid to take him on her own, however waiting for the pack to get him. Showing the standings, Drax is in the middle of everyone, and priority next turn is going to be huge. And with the all-important priority roll, Escher score a 6 going first, Goliath a 4 to go second, and Cawdor a 2 for yet another last place placing. The first activation of the round, Raven declares a charge towards Drax the Stimmer. Getting a 3, that gives her 2 extra inches of movement, more than enough to get into him. And she charges into his flank. With 3 attacks on her profile, +1 for charging, she's got 4 dice looking for 2s to hit. And scores 3 hits. With a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 5, she's looking for 5s to wound. And scores nothing. Drax gets a chance to retaliate, although he has to turn to face her and he's still intoxicated, meaning he's -2 to hit. So with his 3 attacks, he's now looking for 4s to hit. Rolling the 3 dice, and he scores 2 hits, and with a strength of 4 versus a toughness of 4, he's looking for 4s to wound, scoring 1 wound. However, Raven has an armoured undersuit and mesh armour, meaning she needs a 4 to save, which she makes. Despite the bluster of both characters, this is a stalemate. For the Goliath activation, it's Drax, trying to shake this intoxication, and with a 4, he finally does. No longer drunk, he's looking to make some revenge on Raven. With 3 attacks on his profile, now back to hitting on 2s, he rolls, and he scores 2 hits, and with a strength of 4 versus a toughness of 4, again we're looking for 4s to wound, and it's nothing. Raven with a chance to retaliate herself, with 3 attacks looking for 2s, gets 3 hits, and with a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 5, she's looking for 5s to wound. So again, a complete dud. Up next, the Deacon Homer. First activating his Fanatical Further, which allows him to double his attacks once per game, with -1 to hit as a penalty. He then also triggers the skill Devotional Frenzy, which gives him +D3 to a few of his stats, most importantly, his weapon skill. Rolling for this bonus first, he gets a 5, which gives him +3 to his weapon skill. Then testing for his charge distance, he gets a 3, which gives him an extra 2 inches, which is more than enough to come into the back of Drax.
Charge!
With 4 attacks now due to his skill and +1 for charging, that's 5 dice, looking for 2s to hit with all the modifiers. With 5 dice, he's then looking for 5s to wound with a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 5. And with multiples scored, there is then 3 armour saves required, failing 2 of them on a 6+. This means 2 injured dice are rolled, and we get a flesh wound and a seriously injured. meaning that Drax goes down and Homer gets the coup de grace in. With the final model to activate, we have the little sister Scarlet. Declaring a charge, she gets a 6, giving her 3 extra inches of movement, more than enough to take her into Homer the Deacon. With 1 attack on her profile, plus 1 for charging, she gets 2 attacks looking for 5s. Rolling the dice, she scores 1 hit with a strength of 3 versus a toughness of 3. We're looking for 4s to wound, and scoring a 6, that's a wound. And as he's got no armour, we get to roll an injury die, and that is a serious injury. This makes up for the fact that we forgot to give him a damage. He's now taken out of action and coup de grace.
Oh!
With everybody either fleeing the bar or dead and injured, House Escher, the Crimson Blades, take the day. It's a great victory, and now they get to beat old Rufie and get the information on Whiteton Falls. So that's the end of the Big Bar Brawl and Battle 1 for our campaign for Whiteton Falls. We're a group of 6 players in the Hull area. We get together once a month. We try and play 2 to 3 games each to try and maintain the balance. We always start with a multiplayer battle, and the plan is to just have fun and really enjoy it. If you've got any comments, please leave them in the channel below, or alternatively you can message us on Instagram under the Hive Herald Network Instagram page. My name's Carl. I just want to thank you all very much. If you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and fingers crossed you'll be interested in keeping an eye on our campaign and seeing the progress of all 6 gangs involved in the campaign. There was only 5 in this one because one of our players couldn't make the first day. However, you will see some of his videos coming up. Thank you very much, and everyone, just keep enjoying Necromunda.